Okay, so I'm going to move on and I'm going to introduce the next panel list, and is the person of Fumnanya Okeleke-Kooper. Fumnanya is an experienced product manager with a proven track record of building and scaling impactful solutions. He leads product development for electric motorbike solutions at Ampersand Energy, aiming to revolutionize mobility for 30 million riders in Africa. So join me in welcoming Fumnanya as one of our panelists this morning. You're welcome. It's great to have you join us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And finally, we have Lemuel Abishua from Africa Product Peer. So Lemuel is the founder and CEO of Generous Circle, an award-winning startup incubated by leading African VCs like Antler and 54 Collective. He is also a partner at Africa Product Peer, a leading tech community in East Africa with monthly events and over 5,000 members. So can we join me in welcoming Lemuel this morning? It's great having you join us. Thank you so much, Lemuel.
Thank you, Esther. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay, so from the attendees side, we have Amos. Hello, Amos. Amos is the product manager and is joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. We have Elian. Elian is joining us from Ghana. We have Charles. Charles is joining us from Ghana. We have Emmanuel Okpong. He's a product manager and is joining us from Uyo, Nigeria. It's great to have you all on the call, and I believe that we're going to have an amazing time of learning this morning. Yes, so we are just going to go right into it. And so a little housekeeping for our attendees. Please note that if you have questions during the webinar, you can send them in the Q&A session and our speakers will answer them. So if you have any question as the webinar goes on, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A session and we'll get to it. Thank you so much. So we'll be going right into it. And I am going to start with Fumnanya. So Fumnanya is somebody I know while he was in Nigeria, right? So I know him right back from while he was in Nigeria. Fumnanya, can you briefly tell us a bit about your product journey, how you got into product or anything product, right? Because we know that a lot of people, that have come across did not really start out doing product management. They mostly start out from a particular career that they were already doing and then transitioned into product. So would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Great. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Thanks, Esther. And it's a good opportunity and a privilege to be here on this call. My product journey is not very straightforward. There's been many cuts and many corners. First of all, I graduated with a degree in microbiology. So whenever I tell people, they'll be like, how does microbiology relate to product management? But I had the dream actually to be an environmental scientist. That was the plan after school, but that didn't pan out because, Nigeria and all of that. But I had my first job as a quality control specialist. This was for a pharmaceutical, so it wasn't for software. But at that time, I realized I didn't want to work in the lab. I didn't want to do anything microbiology. So I spent 1 year just like freelancing. I tried my luck at a consultancy that didn't pan out so well. Eventually, I decided to take a certification in customer service. And I spent about a month or 2 months doing that. And I got a job working at CAS 45, being a product operations officer. So for 8 months, I was doing a lot of operational work. But I finally decided that it was time for a career change. And that's when I found Product Dive, which was a product school in Lagos, and I did their PM's foundational certification. Yeah, and the rest is history. So it wasn't pretty straightforward. I mean, I was laid off in 2020 by Cast 45, but I spent, that was the pandemic. I spent most of the pandemic just learning more about products before I got my first job at Seamless HR, where I moved from being a junior product manager to an associate product manager before I eventually became a senior product manager working with them. And then I moved to Ampersand Energy here in Kigali. So that's been my journey so far. There's been a couple of failures, a couple of pivots, but it's been pretty good so far. Thank you.
Wow. That's interesting, right? So this is just a cue to let everyone know that you don't have to be technical to be a product manager, right? Even if you don't have a technical background, you can be a product manager and you can really do well at building exceptional products, right? And it's funny how that I also graduated as a microbiologist. Yeah, so here we are today. Okay, that's good. So we'll be moving on to Ayo. So Ayo, would love to hear a bit of your background and kindly tell us about the product you are building at Ends Technology as well. Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone hear me fine? Just want to confirm. Okay. Yes. I think similar to Fumnanya, I didn't have a straight product journey. Yeah. So I studied computer science. So I have more of a technical background. Yes. So I studied computer science at the African Leadership University. It's in Kigali, Rwanda. But when I was studying computer science, I hated coding. Yes. And I wasn't a big fan of designing either. Yes. But I knew I wanted to be in this tech space, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yes. Also, while I was in school, I started businesses. So I was selling jollof rice to students, to facilitators. I had that entrepreneurial spirit, yes. But I didn't know how that could plug into tech. Yes. So for a while I was just in tech doing courses, all of that, yes. Fast forward to 2022, yes, or 2021 actually, yes. Got a job doing some marketing sales here for a tech company actually, yes. So they're similar to Chowdeck, they're into food delivery. And while I was with them, I was doing more of marketing sales, yes. But as time started going, yes, I wanted to talk more to like the tech people, the tech team, yes, figure out how we're building, talk to the customers, figure out what the pain points are, yes. But still, I didn't know what product management was, yes. But divinely, I found product management and I was like, I have found my home, yes. It just allowed me to be in the middle of the customers, the tech team, the business itself, yes. And yes, so I started doing that. I got my first official product management gig in 2022 with a company, with a fintech company in Ghana. Yes, called Lada. I worked there for 3 months. Then I transitioned to the role I'm currently doing right now at Hens Technologies. So what Hens Technologies does basically is we build legal software for legal teams. Yes. We don't do it for we don't have a lot of African clients here because again, the legal space in Africa is not as robust as it is in the West, in the US, in the UK. Yes, but we have our team based in Africa. So right now I'm in Lagos. We used to have an office in Kigali, so I used to be based there sometimes. Also, we have people working from Kenya and Uganda, different parts of Africa. So we build from Africa to the rest of the world. So right now, what we're working on is we're working on an AI tool that enables people know what we call like legal risk. Yeah, so kind of foretell legal risk as it pertains to you, your company, your team. Yeah, so you're just better prepared for the future. So yes, that's my background and what we're currently working on.
Wow, interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so we are going to be moving on to Lemuel. So I think that aside building products in Africa being very hard, the next thing to that is building communities, right? If you are building, if you are working with people, it's a lot of hard work, right? So I'm really inspired by what Lemuel is doing, right? So Lemuel, I would love to ask you, so how has your identity as an African shaped how you think about products and product communities? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Esther. I think to answer that, I'll also talk a little bit about my journey to product. So I have an academic background in law. Then I made a decision to pivot. And so I started initially exploring what Ayo is building, legal tech. And then I made an analysis at that time, and maybe that position has changed, that Kenyan lawyers are not going to pay enough money for me to make a unicorn. And so it's like, okay, if I want to build a big startup, what are the other spaces to explore? I made a decision to transition into a really exciting moonshot startup called ALX. The time, my initial thought was find someone who has a really big vision for transforming the continent in a commercial way, and I think that's what Petsonica is doing. And in that journey, I just started out in a sales role, and a lot of folks who have non-technical backgrounds typically ask me, how do I get into tech? How do I get into product? I'd say just get in, just figure out how you can get into a startup. And that was my journey. And the people who recruited me were consultants that were pivoting in terms of what the team was focusing on every 3 to 6 months. And eventually I transitioned into a product role. I have to say that was also with a lot of intentionality, just being clear in terms of what I wanted with my career journey, and talking to the leaders in the organization about my intention to transition into product really helped. And then when I got there, I was thrown in the deep end. I was told to build a product and launch it in 6 weeks. I had previously at the time built more of like learning management product. And so this is my first digital product. And to figure it out, now to answer your question, Esther, I needed to lean into community. And so one of the things I did, especially around COVID, was just reach out to as many people as possible on a weekly basis. I was talking to maybe like 5 new people each week on LinkedIn, just to understand about people's career journeys, to understand how they got into product, to understand how they were approaching product. And so when I was thrown in the deep end to figure out product, I leaned into community to do that. I got a lot of support from very smart, accomplished product people, and eventually also started to think through how could I add value to them. In terms of what I found is unique about building communities in Africa's tech ecosystem is really important to understand what your community cares about by staying close to the community. And so having a really strong pulse of what's important to our community members, right? And so Africa Product Peers, for example, we say that we accelerate tech talent or product talent in 3 ways. We help them get jobs, we help them get promotions, and we help them launch new ideas. And that's based off the insight that everyone in the community is figuring out how to, in different seasons of their careers, either get a job if they don't have one. If they have a job, probably grow up the ladder. And if they have a job and they're growing up the ladder, maybe they're thinking about launching a side venture. And that's insight from just like talking to the community as regularly as possible, and figuring out how we can not just do events for the sake of pulling together panels, but really connect the reason we're gathering to the outcomes that are.
Wow, interesting. Like, I really do have more questions, but I don't want to jump the gun, right? Because I am still amazed at how you are working with over 5,000 members and then you are making things work. I mean, if you have worked with at least 100 people, you know that working with people is a lot of work, right? So, but having 5,000 members and then still building a thriving community around it and still maintaining the vision and all is a lot of work, and that's solid work. Well done, Lemuel. So we're going to be diving into our topic, building in Africa, keeping sane in challenging environments, right? And I'm going to be going back to Fumnanya. So Fumnanya worked in Nigeria, right? And for an individual, not even a business person, not even a product company now, working in Nigeria as an employee is a lot of work. It's challenging. I mean, sometimes you are doing your work and never takes light. Right now, I'm praying that, oh Lord, let them not take this light so that they will not disappoint me, right? So it's a lot of work. You have to think about internet connection. You have to think about lights. You have to think about transportation and all that. So I want to ask Funaya, you have the experience of both working in Nigeria and working in Rwanda. So can you explain how these cultures, both in Nigeria and Rwanda, has shaped or has impacted how you build and has reshaped how you started thinking about building products?
Yeah, thanks, Esther, for that question. And you're right. If I was in Nigeria, I'll be worrying about electricity and noise
You're
and
not worrying now in
the
Kigali.
weather.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not worrying now. And I think Ayo would agree with me because he has, and Lemuel also agree with me. But generally, in terms of like comparing to the market, in working in Nigeria is somewhere that I've seen. I mean, the market is really large. You're building, even if you're building for 200 million people, you can still break it down and say you're building for 10 million people, 20 million people, 30 million people. It's really very easy, especially if you have like a day-to-day thing that the citizens in the country will always want to go back to. A very good example is the fintech applications like OPay. Is something that everyone uses. Like money points, for example, people send money every single day. So you definitely know that this already has like a huge customer base. And, trying to build niche, especially in a place like Nigeria, can be very difficult as well. So it's also kind of like the same thing in Rwanda. But what I've seen here in Rwanda is that the market is really small. So you are basically playing in a very, very tight market. Like I'm talking about in terms of like population size. You would be building for like 12 or 13 million people. And if you're trying to build something really big that will have like really huge impact, then Rwanda is probably a good place to start. But you're already thinking about expansion across the continent because you cannot just stop there. But one thing that I like in terms of like the infrastructure is that there's been some major improvements. Like you don't have to worry about infrastructural things like electricity here, for example, which is why Ampersand Energy is able to thrive as a business. We have charging stations across Kigali, and it's very easy for us to say, oh, we hardly have like blackouts or power outages here. Like it only happens once. I think the last power outage was like I don't know 6 months ago, and it was probably for like less than an hour, if I remember correctly. So you can see those infrastructural issues are not really there. I mean, there's still some work that needs to be done with the rural access, and skill gap is also huge. I think that's one thing that Nigeria also has very high in terms of like skills. We are very we're very skill oriented. Like some people can pack like 10 certificates. And and here in Rwanda, the skill development is still getting there. It's not the level that it should be, but it's pretty understandable because the tech ecosystem is at its foundational stages, right? So there are more limited more limited talent pool, but there's still rapid upskilling that happens, currently in progress. If you now want to talk about the ease of doing business, now that's a different conversation entirely, because depending on which side of the coin, bureaucracy hits you, right? It's one of the things that we've experienced here as well as a business working here which has also affected some of my product decisions because of the bureaucracy that happens here in Rwanda. But in Nigeria as well, there's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of, and permit me to use the word corruption, with people trying to get their own bite back when you bring up something, or people trying to say, oh, well, settle Mr. A, B, C, and D before you are able to get through the next door. And that can be hampered sometimes, especially when it comes to a lot of products that have high regulatory policies, like fintech, for example, and health tech. Moving through all of that red tape can be very, very difficult. But here is a lot more streamlined with government processes. They're also streamlining their ICT authority, so it makes it a lot easier for people to come into Rwanda and do business. And we'll be seeing that a lot here in Rwanda. And yeah, I think when you're also thinking about localization in Nigeria, you don't have to worry about language barrier. But that's something that I learned a lot here when I came to Rwanda. Still cannot speak the local language yet, but I do understand some phrases when some things are said. But you don't have to really worry about localization in Nigeria because everyone basically speaks a common language. If it's not English, it is Pidgin, which is sort of like a vernacular. At least people know, and people are very smartphone savvy. Here, I've had to build products around the fact that majority of our drivers are not smartphone savvy. In fact, most of them don't even buy data on their phones. Some of them even have smartphones, but they just use it to call, right? Which is pretty interesting. So I've had to really adjust my work and adjust the goals and the vision that we have and how far we want to go with these drivers because of this localization. So yeah, those are just some of the differences I've seen between working in Nigeria and also working in Rwanda.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for sharing. So when you said smartphone savvy, right? I like to also think about it like this. I mean, a lot of people feel like, I mean, Lagos is not Nigeria. There are a lot of places in Nigeria that are still not, I mean, they're laid back, they're still not tech savvy, right? And a lot of product organizations are trying to solve that ordeal on how they can take these solutions to those local area, like how they can scale the solution in those local area. So this is something that is common. So I would like to hear from Lemuel. So how is this like in Kenya, right? So how do local infrastructures like light, internet, government regulations, how do they affect or impact product decisions?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about two product experiences. One is more recent in what I'm doing right now with General Circle. So we help people raise money. One of the ways, there are many ways you could achieve that product outcome, and one of the ways we do that is through crowdfunding. And so that's a fintech product, and in anything involving the movement of money is heavily regulated. And when you're talking to an investor, you're thinking about pitching a solution that could be scalable across the continent. And if you've ever built a fintech product, you know how really stressful, even the biggest players in fintech have really struggled to get licenses to process the movement of money across borders or within different regions. And so, yeah, I think with my experience there, you just are forced to be a lot more creative in thinking about what are the right solutions to help you deliver the product outcome. In the second example I'll give is with my experience at ALX. And so part of the product there is tech talent. And so there's one of the products I worked on was a virtual assistant service where would match ALA alumni like Ayo, ALU alumni like Ayo, rather, and ALA alumni, ALX alumni to executives globally. And this was around COVID, and one of the initial hurdles we had to bypass was connectivity. It's for folks who lived in regions where internet bandwidth was really poor, and we needed to figure out how do we support folks who are being matched to executives in a modern workplace with enough internet bandwidth for that to not be a barrier to collaborating. Those are the small things which make you lose trust with your manager. Say, for example, if you're involved in coordinating a webinar and the person who is supposed to be coordinating the webinar is inaccessible because of internet connectivity, right? And so those are some of the tasks that executives would expect the virtual assistants to help with, but they were unable to. And so there's a lot of thinking there in terms of how do you mitigate this problem in the short term. So some money for data tools, help them get the best internet service providers available. Some of the initial ways we solve for that problem. But then there are other connectivity issues which you can't solve for with just more data bundles, right? Like power outages, right? And so as a result, a longer term solution that Lex explored was establishing hubs. And I think even with that, learning in the process. So Alex has several hubs within the 8 major cities that we worked in at the time when I was at the organization. And to even decide where you'd set up a hub, I think if you're working in tech, there's an affinity to pick the exciting sort of like co-working spaces that everyone in tech wants to work at, right? But remember, here we're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to enable our tech talent to have connectivity. And so even there, we had to do some data mapping, figure out where are the clusters of neighborhoods where most of our tech talent live. And therefore, based on that insight, we had to set up hubs in some unsexy places, right? And so don't let your decisions on where you solve some of these problems be influenced based on your biases, but inform them based on data. So those are two examples that come to mind in terms of how we can sort of like the problems you'll uncover and how you'll have to bypass them. For General Circle, I should mention one of the ways we're bypassing the challenge of scaling a product that solves the fundraising problem is through looking at other ways we can help people raise. So the most money is through our persona and NGO. And yes, raise money from crowdfunding, but the biggest source of funding for them is grants. And so we're building a solution that helps them raise grant funding using AI. And that's a lot more scalable than our initial crowdfunding product. And interestingly, the hurdles that we had to bypass with crowdfunding and the friction that we experienced forced us to pause and innovate in a way that's actually forced us to build something way more impactful for the customer. And so I think as African product builders, some of those challenges you experience in our unique local context could actually help you refine a much higher quality product for your customer.
Wow, that's really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. I believe that a lot of this solution would actually come up if we are more focused on really understanding the problems that people face, right? If we are really trying to get to the root of the problem as opposed just coming up with a solution and saying that, oh, these people would like it or it will work for them, right? So, but if we can get to the root of the problem, if we can do our discoveries very well, I believe that we'll be able to find solutions that would scale in local settings like that. Thank you so much for sharing, Lemuel. So I'll be asking Ayo my next question, and it's, can you share with us like one mindset that has helped you thrive and not just survive in a challenging environment? So I know that you have lived in Nigeria, you have also lived in Rwanda. I don't know what other countries you have lived in, right? But can you, as a product person, what's one mindset that has helped you thrive in challenging environments?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think if I was to say one word is adaptability. Yeah, so again, I think Lemuel and Funai have mentioned it, yes. You can't take what works in one place to apply in another place and just hope it works. Yeah, so I can give an example. I was, I think 2023. Yes, I was in Kigali, then I came to Lagos for a while. Yes, and in Kigali, as Fumnanya has said, yes, and when I'm working, I just have one Wi-Fi option because I know it's going to work. Yes, I don't have any challenges. I pay for it. I know my Wi-Fi is going to work until it expires. Yes, because it's like unlimited and all. So I had a really important client call, a demo, yes, with a client in the US, and I was the one to walk the person through the stuff, yes. 5 minutes before the demo, I noticed my Wi-Fi stopped working. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't know that the Nigerian gods were against me. And with that, tried hotspots, went around the house asking everyone for Wi-Fi, internet, nothing worked. MTN, Airtel, everybody decided that day that we are not going to work for the next. And it was funny because it just didn't work for the next 30 minutes. Yes. And my bosses reached out to me on WhatsApp, like, are you joining this call? All of that. Yes. And I think that was a wake-up call to me that you are no longer in Kigali. Yes. So don't behave like you're in Kigali. Yes. So, and I think it's a joke I have with my sisters where it's like, when I come to Nigeria, yes, put on your Nigerian cap, yes, and be ready for what Nigeria has to offer. Yes, I don't think it means you have to change your values and what you stand for. Yes, I think you can still stand for what you stand for, have your value system. Yes, but I think in terms of how you approach things, yes, how you approach problems, how you approach people, yes, I think that you have to be willing to adapt. Yes, and I think that also applies to you being a product manager. Yes, you have people from different walks of life. Yes, I have developers from Burundi, from Kenya, with different personalities. Yes, and I've learned to adapt how I work with them. Yeah, so I can't say this is how I do it for this person. Yes, that means that's how I'm going to do it for everybody. Yes, I have developers who they want to be on calls. Yes, to understand a feature. Yes, I have people who don't like calls. Yes, send them documentation and they're good. Yes, same for clients. Yes, I have clients who don't want to jump on calls every once in a week. Don't care for that. Yes, just make sure the product is working. That's all. And there are other clients who they want to make sure that every few days, let's jump on a call. How are we doing? So I think I've learned that you have to adapt to different things, to your environment, to the people, and to the problems you have at hand. So yes, for me, I think adaptability is really, really key. I don't know if it's just me, but Esther seems her video is of
Yeah,
Nigeria.
yes. Your point is being proven live.
My point is being proven. Just as I said it.
Sorry, everyone. My sincere apologies. How do you know I'm in Nigeria without internet issues? Thank you so much for your patience. I'm back. Thank God I have a backup. So I didn't really get what Ayo said, but I believe everyone on the call got it. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing. So it's Fumnanya, yeah.
I think he's also having internet issues. But again, my point, I think your internet issues just proved my point. It was a good summary of my.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I'll just move on to Lemuel. So or how do you prioritize global practices versus homegrown insights when building like in Kenya? So so we know that there are some practices that especially in the product space that would work. I mean, when you are in places like in the US or in the West, right? Anywhere outside of the country. But in Nigeria, you have to really look for how to blend it into the culture of things and the people that you are working with. So how do you prioritize these practices?
Yeah, I think there's two angles that I'm thinking about with this question. I think one is as a founder and one is as a product person. So after transitioning from ALX, I started my founder journey through Antler. Antler is a global VC. In 2023, they wrote the most pre-seed investment checks And so pure through and through venture capital firm. And as a result, a lot of the programming I went through in Antler was like how to build a startup like in Silicon Valley. I think I will give it to the Antler team. They did try to contextualize it and give it local context. I think though in my journey since then, I found that it's very different building on the continent, right? And so I'll give you an example. Like if you get 100,000 investment and you apportion, let's say 30% of your funding to marketing. If you're a startup founder in North America, you could say of that 30K, I'm going to put 15K into ads. And you could get decent traction with customer acquisition, right? But if you've done digital marketing in Africa, you realize that it's not apples to apples, right? And so for us, building up a software product on the continent means you need to be a lot more creative in thinking about the distribution. I think one of the things that comes to mind as a founder is the importance of listening to revenue. I think that's important because you just need to figure out how to keep the lights on. And sometimes there's a lot of purist mentality around how building a business should be approached, which forgets the basic fundamentals, right? Like if you're building something that is someone is willing to pay for, then that's insight, right? So as quickly as possible as you can get to shipping a product and getting revenue, do it. Now with my product hat, I think the distinction could be when you're in a company that has, let's say, some level of comfort with funding and you have the lights on and you're thinking more as like an employee product, you're running experiments, right? And you have some wiggle room to sort of like do a lot of things that fail because you're testing hypotheses. I think that, again, you need to think about what enabling environment your experiments need to succeed. And for us, a lot of the experiments we've run involve a lot of in-person experiences. That could be because of a lot of the community building affinity we have as Africa product peers, and that's built over into the other things that we build. But I find it super, super useful as like my personal product philosophy, like thinking about how you get your product off the ground by starting off with communities, right? And so for Generous Circle, we have a community. It's called Generous Academy, people who are looking to raise money in different ways. Africa Product Peers in and of itself is a community. And then I have another organization called Faith Foundry, and there we're building Christian tech, and we have a Christians in Tech community. And so for all of the products that we launch, we, from day one, launch with more than 1,000 people on an email list. And that's been super effective for us to get off the ground. So I think the many experiments that fail because you don't have an enabling environment. So as a product person, I think you should be working hand in hand with your marketing team and some of the other ops teams to figure out what would it look like to create an enabling environment to support you getting to insight, tangible insight as quickly as possible. And last thing I'll say, insight that also involves willingness to pay is super important. If people sign up and they use and play around with the product, that's nice, but like if they can pay for it, then that's even better. And that's now an intersection between my founder hat and my product hat.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this. I mean, one of the things I got from what you just shared is that you need to really understand insights, right, from from the community you're building from your own locality. So that it's worked in the US does not mean it's automatically worked. That they did it like this in Silicon Valley does not mean it would work like this in Kenya or work like that in Nigeria, right? You need to know what works. You need to know how adoption works, for example, in your own locality, and so you can channel resources to areas that would help drive that adoption. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to be asking Fumnanya this question. So can you tell us some personal routines or maybe habits that keeps you grounded, I mean, during toughest product seasons? So when you are going through like a very tough, I mean, for every product person, if you have good products, you agree that there are seasons of product development that are very tough. I mean, from stakeholder management to regulations and all that, and you are just trying to meet the timeline. You are trying to ship this product to go live, right? So that at least you can start giving value to your users, and so that your business can start generating revenue. So what are some personal routines that have kept you grounded during these toughest product seasons?
Well, I guess I would say one personal routine is trying to establish some sort of clarity, because that's the most important thing. Because when you have a clear head or a clear mind, then it's much easier for you to make decisions, very important decisions. And like for me, for example, some things that I do is like I get off not even thinking about the work itself, probably just go and do something else, something creative, like, probably playing video games, watch an interesting YouTube video that I've never seen before. And I've often seen that doing things like that, the answer just comes, straight to me, like, oh, these are the next things that I will now do, based off of just doing that exercise. So it's like I'm detaching from the work itself so that I can see clarity doing something else. And that's something that's very important, because when you're too on the nose with what you're building, sometimes the only thing that you see is your own bias. And you won't even see your bias, rather. You'll be seeing other things that are wrong. You're not even thinking about, okay, where am I biased here? Where do I need to actually rethink my approach, to this? The second thing that I do is try not to operate in a silo. I think that's what product managers do a lot, because we feel like everything rests on our shoulders. We find it a bit difficult to like collaborate. It's like, oh, I'm going to be the Superman or the Superwoman of the day. And, that can be very annoying. Especially when I see product managers do that, because I'm like, yeah, you have your engineers right there. You have your manager right there. You have the people on your team. You should work with them to collaboratively get out of this bubble. And I've grounded myself to also believe that I don't hold all the answers. I'm not the expert in every single thing. My job, or one of my main jobs, and is something that keeps me sane, actually, as a product manager, is to understand that most of the time I won't come up with the best ideas, but my job is to ensure that the best ideas are being shared and the best ones are being used, so that we can use that to improve the product. So those are the things that help, especially when you're working in an environment like this, because people will frustrate you, people will annoy you, the products would not be the way that you hope that it will be. And I think one final thing I'll say is that stop trying to chase perfectionism, because people are always trying to be perfect. If I do it like this, I won't be satisfied until it has to be shiny and all of that. Sometimes good is what you need just right then and there. Sometimes it just needs to get out of the door first. It doesn't have to be the very best or the smoothest experience in terms of like product, and then you can keep working your way up from there. So if it's not perfect, it's not something you should beat yourself over, but it's something you should go back and think, well, what does good look like to me, and how can I actually get there? So those are some of the things that actually help me.
I really like this last point you made, and it's something that I can relate to it a lot, because I've worked in places that, I mean, you try to get every dot right, and at the end of the day, the product does not get out. I mean, so that's like one of the problem we really face. So instead of trying to, I mean, you have this product has not even got into the hands of the users yet. you are the one still using the product and you are still trying to figure out everything possible, which is impossible. I mean, because once you think the perfect product has even gone out, users will still have a lot of things to say about that product. So why not get it out first, right? At least if it's in a good place, the UX, UI is good, the functionality, basic functionalities are working, it's okay to get it out, then iterate. And that's why we have the iteration mentality in the first place, right? So there's a possibility of iterating until you get what you want at the end of the day. So the likes of YouTube, they didn't start like this, right? They were not like this. Netflix was not like this. They were just emailing videos when they started, right? But they are where they are today because they went out and then they shipped, they launched, they listened to their users, they listened to users' feedback, and then they kept iterating until they got to the point that they are today. So that's a very good point for me. And I also like the point that you said that you don't have to have all the answers, because I think that's one problem that a lot of product managers have. They feel like because they are the product managers, they are the product owners or product CEOs, like some people will call themselves. They are supposed to have all the answers to everything, which is
That's
not
a
like.
very bad mentality.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've heard Marty Kagan say over time that sometimes, not even sometimes, say most of the time, the best ideas actually do comes from engineers, right? And if you don't talk
Yes.
to them, if you don't share thoughts with them, if you don't make yourself open to receive ideas from them, they will just keep to themselves. I mean, engineers can be very they can be very funny. So if you don't ask for their opinion, they keep it to themselves, right? So you are not an expert at everything, right? So don't try to assume the role of both your engineer, your designer, as a product manager. So that's why you have a team that you work with. Ensure you are working with them, right? Not just micromanaging them. Thank you so much for sharing. So we have a question from somebody in the chat, and it says, this question is for Lemuel. From a founder's perspective related to challenging environments, what are your thoughts on the regulatory environment? It seems like we don't seem to be as forward-thinking and accommodating as Rwanda is. I'm thinking this person is in Kenya, and we seem to want to regulate everything, tax, everything digital more recently, introducing significant economic presence tax for foreign companies. So the person is asking, what are your thoughts on these regulatory decisions?
Yeah, good question, Amos. So one, I'll say it's important to perform your civic duty and vote. And I think a lot of us sometimes are passive with this. And the people who get into power have a policy perspective on, among other things, how they want to approach the tech industry. The people who are put in charge of the Ministry of ICT in Kenya are politicians. They're not technocrats. And I think we are starting to see the ripple effect of that. Versus in Nigeria, the people who they put in charge of the Ministry of ICT are exactly who I think should be leading those kinds of dockets. So I think from a government perspective, we should be playing a role in our civic duty actively. And we started to see that, protesting, including with people in the tech space, building tools that help in public participation. So in terms of our regulatory environment, I think that's one of the things that we can do as tech people. I think I don't want to complain and say, one thing or the other about our regulatory environment. I think maybe a better angle to this is, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a product person, your role is to problem solve. And if problems didn't exist, then there would be no reason for you to be there, right? And so many a time when you have a slide deck as a founder that talks about your moat, one of the moats could be we figured out how to crack the regulatory environment. And now increasingly it's important for product people. If you're a product manager in fintech, you can't get away with not understanding regulation. You need to understand how regulation impacts things like KYC, etc. And so I think it's giving again more value add to people who are building skills in these areas to have a rationale why they should be building as a founder or be an expert on someone's team as a product leader.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe that question is very specific to Kenya. Reason why the person asked, right? And I hope you got value from what the answer that Lemuel gave. Thank you so much, Lemuel. So we are almost rounding off now. But I'm going to be asking one more question to every one of you, and I'll be starting with Ayo. So if you could give a piece of advice to someone that is just starting their product journey, I mean, you read computer science, but you don't like coding. Why would you not like, why did you now go to computer science? But thank God we have AI tools like Lovable and all that can help you, right? And a lot of other tools that are coming up. So if you could give one piece of advice to somebody that is just starting their product management journey, what would that be, Ayo?
Okay. First off, to your question of why did I read computer science, you like coding because of money. No, I'm joking. No, but it's because I knew tech was the future. Yeah, so I could
Okay.
see from the trends that tech was going to be the future. But yeah, if I was to give advice to people coming up, so again, I think I would answer it if I was to advise myself doing this again. Yes, what I know so far, yes, is I think Fumnanya had mentioned some of this. Yes, you are not Superman. I think that's the first thing I tell myself. Yes, there's a pressure, especially with tools like LinkedIn, social media. There's a pressure of FOMO, fear of missing out. There's a pressure that you are behind. Yes, I think that's the first thing. Yes, I think one thing you have to understand is everyone has their journey, everyone has their path. Yeah, so what I tend to do nowadays is I see people's path, yes, and I appreciate it, yes. But I also realize that there's a lot of hard work that's gone into that path. Yes, people tend to show us their final versions. Yes, no one shows us the back end. Everyone shows the front end. Yes, everyone shows, hi, I just got a job in Google. I just got promoted. I just got this. I just got that. Yes, but that's years, months, sleepless nights. Yes, so I think for myself, if I was doing this again, is relax. Yes, take your time, go at your pace. Yes, use what people are showing, what people are saying, yes, as resources to motivate yourself, but don't let that be a weight on you where you feel like you're not doing anything, nothing is working out for you. I think that mentality is the first thing. And I say that as the first and most important thing because I've heard it from so many people who want to come up, and it's a case of how can I do this in 1 month, in 1 week? And I'm like, no, you can't. Yes, it's a journey. Yes, it's not destination. Yes, I can't sleep and wake up and say I'm for myself. Yeah, I have to go to the airport. I have to go through the Nigerian traffic, get to the airport. Yes, fly. You understand? So I can't reach a destination without going through the journey. That's the first thing. Yes. And I think the second thing is I would also advise people to allow yourself learn. Yes, never stop learning. Yeah. So don't be caught up or don't nothing is set in stone. Yeah. So today, yes, you're thinking of this, you have a mindset. Yeah. Example, myself, yes. When I first started, it was like, oh, fintech, yes. I want to be a product manager in fintech, love the fintech space, all that, yes. But the thing is, you have to learn yourself, allow yourself learn. Yes, there's nothing too hard for you to learn. There's nothing too hard for you to learn. If you calm down, settle down, yes, you can learn, you can evolve, you can grow. Yes. So I'll say those are the two things. Don't be in a rush, allow yourself to experience the journey. And second thing is always be willing to learn. So
Wow, thank you so much. Allow yourself, go through the process, go through the journey, and also to learn. Learning never stops. If you are on this part of product management, it's a journey of continuous learning. So you have to keep learning and learning and learning a lot of things, right? So just allow yourself go through the process. Yeah. So the theme for last year's Inspire Africa conference is product is hard. But I think that building or working as a product manager in a company that builds hardware is harder. and that's why it's hardware. So, Fumnanya, I want to ask you this final question. You are building you're working as a product person in a company that is building hardware. I mean, it's a different experience entirely. So, what keeps you hopeful about working as a product manager in a hardware company, especially in Africa?
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
So what keeps me hopeful? So maybe I should also talk a bit about my work, because Ampersand has the hardware part. Yes, we must the asset itself are the batteries, which we serve to our drivers so that they can come to the swap stations and get a fully charged battery in a matter of 2 minutes. So basically what we have battery swap networks in Rwanda and in Kenya that allow the drivers to do that rather than waiting hours to charge at home or buying an expensive home charger. The riders simply pull up and do that. So you can understand that with hardware there are a lot of components. There's the firmware, there's the telemetry control unit that has to be speaking to the software that we build, and we write a lot of really hard stuff. So in my own end is to make sure that every part of our business is fully optimized for value and impact to our drivers, to our asset financial partners, and to just regular citizens who just want to come and buy bikes and give it to those drivers. So it's hard every single day. But what helps, what gives me the confidence is that we're building what I like to call a foundational problem. Transportation is one of the foundational problems in Africa. And I strongly believe that if we on the continent don't build out our infrastructural problems, if we don't solve all of those areas in terms of education and transportation, in terms of logistics, if we're not able to do all of that properly, we cannot solve what I like to call the second foundational problems that America and the rest of the world, Latin America as well, have been able to now delve into. We can't start talking about all of those things because we're still in the infrastructural early days, so to say. But what gives me confidence is because we're building in that foundational space, and we're not just building aimlessly. We're building with the backing of governance, right? Especially if you are giving a product like that and you are working with the government that backs green growth. I know Kenya and Rwanda are really heavy on green technology, so that also helps to allow you step into those spaces. And I believe that as we keep expanding, of course, across the continent, it presents that platform. What we're doing is not just giving bikes. It's more than a product. It's an with our bikes that have been driving for about 2 years. They already have their houses that they built. Some even have some businesses that they are already running based on the bikes that they are using. So we're helping to lower the cost of fuel, and we're also trying to increase and improve the carbon footprint of daily travel for a lot of riders. So there are more income streams coming away from that. So it gives me confidence that we're walking in the right direction, and helping Africans to step away from that place where they feel like if they don't do maybe tech, for example, if they don't do something else, if they don't do finance, they would not be able to lift themselves to a better position, which is a lie entirely. And that's why I believe that I really have hope that we're working in the right direction.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. I mean, I really love to imagine how it is working in a company that builds hardware, right? And I know that it can be really hard. And software is hard, but it's, it's harder. That's why it's harder. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So well, building community. So what keeps you hopeful?
Sorry, Esther, I missed your question. The internet cut off. Could you repeat that?
Okay, yes, I was asking what keeps you hopeful about building in Africa, especially in the light of building the African peer community?
Yeah, I think so many things that make me hopeful. One, right now, I think for anyone building right now on the continent, like we're trailblazing. There's a lot of problems to solve, and many a time you're the first person to solve that problem in innovating using tech, and that's really exciting for us. I think that also means that there should be a lot of information sharing. I think communities that do a really good job of exchanging notes and not working in silos is why you see a lot of innovation happening. And I think that's what has made places like Silicon Valley, right? Guys don't just discover things and they keep it to themselves. You share with each other, you elevate the broader ecosystem, and you move collectively to the next level. So I'm optimistic about the fact that there are many problems to solve, that we are trailblazing, and that we're sharing. We've had events in the first half of this year with people from large tech like Microsoft, people from YC alumni companies here in Africa, and even some of the trailblazers on the continent like Kala. And I'm excited to continue plugging into community, including at the conference in Kigali, which I'll be attending. And yeah, I think it's also a really interesting time for all of us because of AI. We alluded to tools like Lovable Bolt. I think now more than ever is the best time to be building as a product person. I think even just like recalibrating the role that you play in a product team, as you think about how ChatGPT can help you come up with product documentation faster, how you can leverage tools like Bolt and Lovable to build prototypes faster as well. And so I think this is an interesting season for all of us in product. There's an interesting talk by Andrew MG. Was talking about like how product is going to play a crucial role even as engineers sort of get to output differently now with tools like Cursor and Windsurf, those IDEs. And so, yeah, I think one of the ways to figure out as a young person getting into product, or as a mid to senior person strengthening your position in product, now is the best time to be recalibrating your role in an organization, and yeah, doing it in a community of other product people. So again, just encouraging folks to sign up for the conference coming up in October. I'll be there, and I'm looking forward to learning from other folks in the room. If you want to connect with me, I'm also dropping my LinkedIn in the chat.
Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you at the conference this year. And thank you so much to all our panelists. So finally, I have one question for everyone, our panelists and all our attendees. And you can give me your answers when you come for the conference in October, right? And here is the question. If you have the opportunity to choose a country to build from, will you still choose Africa? That's my question. You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer. You can save your answer for the conference, right? So we are going to see at the Inspire Africa conference. So I want to say
Back now.
okay. Yes, so I was saying thank you so much to everyone and our panelists, especially for the insights shared today. So this conversation is just a glimpse of what is to come at the Inspire Africa conference happening in Rwanda in October this year. And the lineup of speaker is you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. You can go to the website at inspireafricaconference.com and you get a lot more details on how you can participate, how you can join in, and how you can come for the conference from wherever you are currently based. So we'll be gathering founders, builders, and doers from all across the continent. We have the likes of Matty Kagan from the Silicon Valley, Christian Idiodi, we have Chidi Afulezi, and a lot of other amazing speakers that you want to listen to, right? So you don't want to miss it. So go to our website and register. If you have already registered, do well to share this information with other people, because this is going to benefit them a lot. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. To all our attendees, thank you so much. Oh, okay. So someone is saying I'm one of those accidental project managers, and I must say it's been a journey of 1,000 discoveries. Sometimes what I learn online and what is on ground are continents apart, right? But one thing I've come to understand is sustainable growth takes time. Thank you for sharing this insight with us. I'm glad I joined. Thank you so much. We are glad you got this insight. So thank you so much, everyone. We'd love to keep in touch. You can check us out on LinkedIn, and also you can reach out via the Inspire Africa conference page on LinkedIn or the website. Do have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.